Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they never design who they want to become. Life doesn't automatically make you stronger. Time doesn't automatically make you wiser. Experience doesn't automatically make you better. Growth is intentional. If you don't actively build your mindset, the world will shape it for you through stress, through comparison, through pressure, through survival habits instead of growth habits. But the moment you take control of your personal development, everything changes. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your decisions become stronger. Your confidence becomes stable. Your direction becomes intentional. Personal development is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aware, becoming disciplined, becoming mentally strong, becoming emotionally stable, becoming intellectually sharp. The 20 chapters in this audiobook are not tasks. They are building blocks of a powerful life. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Growth Decision. Choosing to improve intentionally. There is a moment in every person's life that determines the direction of everything that follows. It is not a dramatic moment. It is not loud. It is not visible to the outside world. It is quiet, internal, personal. It is the moment you decide whether you will live passively or intentionally. Most people never consciously make this decision. They drift into routines. They react to problems. They chase comfort. They follow expectations created by family, society, or circumstance. And slowly, without realizing it, they build a life shaped by default instead of design. But personal development begins the moment you choose something different. The moment you decide that growth will not be accidental. It will be deliberate. It will be engineered. It will be something you participate in every single day. Because time alone does not improve people. Time only gives experience. And experience without reflection does not guarantee wisdom. You can repeat the same mistakes for years if you never decide to grow intentionally. The growth decision is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming conscious. Conscious of your thinking patterns. Conscious of your emotional reactions. Conscious of your habits. Conscious of the direction your life is moving. Because the truth is, if you do not design who you are becoming, the world will design it for you. Stress will shape your reactions. Comparison will shape your self-worth. Pressure will shape your priorities. And survival habits will replace growth habits. But the moment you choose growth, something powerful shifts. You stop asking, what is happening to me? And you start asking, what am I becoming? That single question changes how you see everything. Because personal development is not a one-time project. It is not something you start and finish. It is a lifelong operating system. And the growth decision is the switch that turns that system on. Now think about why most people avoid making this decision. Growth requires responsibility. Once you decide to grow intentionally, you cannot blame circumstances for everything anymore. You cannot blame your past for everything. You cannot blame other people for everything. Because intentional growth means you take ownership of who you are becoming. And ownership is powerful, but it is also uncomfortable. Because it means you cannot hide from yourself. But this is where real strength begins. Because when you take ownership of growth, you gain control over direction. You may not control every outcome, but you control who you become while pursuing those outcomes. And who you become is more important than any single achievement, because achievements can be lost. Skills can become outdated. Opportunities can disappear. But personal growth compounds. It follows you everywhere. Now think about passive living. Passive living feels easy in the short term. You follow routine. You react to problems. You avoid discomfort. But passive living creates average outcomes. Not because average is bad, but because average is what happens when growth is left to chance. Intentional growth is different. Intentional growth means you actively improve thinking quality. You actively build emotional strength. You actively design habits. You actively choose learning over comfort. And the most powerful part of intentional growth is this. Small improvements compound over time. One better decision per day. One new idea per day. one stronger habit per day. Over years, these tiny improvements create massive life difference. Now think about identity shift. When you choose growth, you stop seeing yourself as someone who reacts to life. You start seeing yourself as someone who shapes life. And this creates confidence that is stable, not fragile, because your confidence is no longer based only on success. It is based on progress. And progress is something you can control daily. Now think about challenges. When you choose growth, challenges stop being enemies. They become training environments. Because every difficulty contains feedback. Every failure contains information. Every mistake contains adjustment opportunity. This mindset removes fear from learning, because learning always includes mistakes. Now think about long-term effect. People who choose intentional growth early build massive advantage over time, not because they are more talented, not because they are more lucky, but because they are more consistent. And consistency is the most underestimated success multiplier in the world. Now think about mental clarity. Intentional growth sharpens thinking. You see patterns faster. You make decisions faster. You recover from mistakes faster. You adapt to change faster. And in a fast-changing world, adaptability is survival advantage. Now think about emotional stability. Intentional growth builds emotional control. You react less impulsively. You recover from stress faster. You maintain clarity under pressure. Now think about life direction. Intentional growth creates direction. Without direction, people chase temporary satisfaction. With direction, people build meaningful progress. Now think about the deepest truth here. Growth is not automatic. Decline can be automatic. Comfort can be automatic. Stagnation can be automatic, but growth requires decision. And once you make that decision, you begin designing your future instead of drifting into it. Now imagine living the next decade with intentional growth mindset. Every year you become more skilled, more emotionally stable, more mentally sharp, more self-aware, more adaptable. And this compounds because growth builds growth. Now remember this. The growth decision is not made once. It is made repeatedly. Every day you choose learning or comfort. Every day you choose discipline or distraction. Every day you choose progress or delay. And these daily decisions shape your future identity, because the person you become is built daily, not someday. And once you fully accept this, you stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop waiting for external permission. You simply begin building yourself intentionally, consistently, patiently, because the people who build meaningful lives are not the ones who wait to change. They are the ones who decide to grow and then never stop. Chapter 2, Self-Awareness. Understanding who you really are. If the growth decision is the starting point of personal development, self-awareness is a foundation that everything else is built on, because you cannot improve what you do not understand. And most people live without fully understanding themselves. They know their name, they know their job, they know their daily routine, but they don't know their deeper patterns. They don't know why they react emotionally in certain situations. They don't know why they repeat certain mistakes. They don't know why certain environments drain them while others energize them. Self-awareness is a process of learning who you are beneath the surface. Your thinking patterns, your emotional triggers, your strengths, your blind spots, your habits, your fears, your motivations. Because real growth is not random improvement. It is targeted improvement. And targeted improvement requires accurate self-understanding. Now think about why self-awareness is difficult. Because it requires honesty. And honesty with yourself is harder than honesty with others. Because when you see your weaknesses clearly, you lose excuses. But you gain power. Because once you can see patterns, you can change them. Now think about behavior patterns. Everyone has default reactions. Some people avoid conflict automatically. Some people react emotionally under pressure. Some people procrastinate when overwhelmed. Some people become defensive when criticized. These patterns are often automatic. Self-awareness makes them visible. Now, think about emotional awareness. Most emotional reactions happen before conscious thinking. You feel before you analyze. But self-aware people notice emotions early. And noticing early creates control. Now, think about strength awareness. Self-awareness is not only about weaknesses. It is about understanding natural advantages. Some people think strategically. Some communicate naturally. Some build relationships easily. Some solve problems creatively. Knowing strengths allows you to design life around them. Now think about blind spots. Blind spots are behaviors others see, but you don't. And blind spots create repeated mistakes. Self-awareness reduces blind spots. Now think about feedback importance. Other people often see parts of you that you cannot see yourself. Now think about reflection habit. Reflection converts experience into wisdom. Now think about identity clarity. Self-aware people know what they stand for. And identity clarity reduces decision confusion. When you develop strong self-awareness, decision quality improves dramatically. Now think about emotional regulation. If you know what triggers stress, you prepare for it. Now think about relationship improvement. If you know your communication style, you communicate better. Now think about career growth. If you know your working style, you choose better environments. Now think about habit change. If you know why habits exist, you change them faster. Now think about stress management. If you know stress signals early, you respond early. Now think about learning speed. Self-aware learners focus on true skill gaps, not random learning. Now think about confidence type. Self-awareness creates stable confidence, not ego-based confidence. Now think about decision fatigue. When you know your values and tendencies, decisions become easier. Now think about goal alignment. Self-aware people choose goals aligned with natural strengths. Now think about energy management. Self-awareness helps you design life around energy, not just time. Now think about growth efficiency. You improve faster when improvement is targeted. Now think about mistake reduction. Pattern awareness reduces repeated mistakes. Over years, self-awareness becomes one of the most powerful life advantages. You understand yourself under pressure. You predict your own reactions. You control impulses better. You choose environments wisely. Now think about leadership advantage. Self-aware leaders make better decisions under stress. Now think about relationship advantage. Self-aware people communicate honestly and clearly. Now think about career advantage. Self-aware professionals build careers aligned with strengths. Now think about emotional advantage. Self-aware people recover faster from emotional stress. Now think about personal peace. Understanding yourself reduces internal conflict. Now think about the deepest truth here. You cannot escape yourself. You carry your patterns into every relationship, every job, every environment. Now imagine living with deep self-awareness for decades. You waste less time fighting your nature. You invest more time improving intelligently. You become more authentic. You become more stable. Now remember this. Self-awareness is not about judging yourself. It is about understanding yourself. Because understanding creates choice. And choice creates change. And once you truly understand yourself, you stop reacting automatically and start choosing intentionally. And that is where real personal power begins. Because the more clearly you see yourself, the more clearly you can design who you become next. Chapter 3, Core Values, Building Your Internal Compass. If self-awareness tells you who you are, core values tell you what you stand for. And in a complex world full of noise, pressure, comparison, and constant influence, values become your internal compass. Because without values, decisions become situational, emotional, reactive, influenced by whoever is loudest, closest, or most persuasive at the moment. But with clear values, decisions become consistent, faster, stronger, more stable, especially under pressure. Now think about what core values really are. They are not motivational words. They are not social media quotes. They are not things that sound good. Core values are the principles you refuse to compromise, even when it's uncomfortable. Integrity, growth, honesty, responsibility, learning, discipline, kindness, excellence, courage. Not all values are equal for every person, and that is important. Your core values must be chosen intentionally, not copied from others. Now think about why values matter most under pressure. When life is easy, anyone can act with integrity. Anyone can be disciplined when motivated. Anyone can be kind when comfortable. But pressure reveals real values. Now think about decision clarity. When values are unclear, decisions feel confusing. You hesitate. You second guess. You feel internal conflict. But when values are clear, decisions often become obvious, even if they are difficult. Now think about values and identity. Values are the foundation of identity, and identity drives behavior automatically. If growth is a core value, you seek learning automatically. If honesty is a core value, you avoid deception automatically. If discipline is a core value, you follow through even when motivation drops. Now think about values versus goals. Goals change. Values remain stable. You might change career goals. You might change lifestyle goals. You might change financial goals. But strong values remain constant. Now think about values and confidence. People who live by values develop self-trust, and self-trust creates stable confidence. Now think about values and environment pressure. Without values, people adapt behavior to environment. With values, people influence environment instead. Now think about values and regret. Most long-term regret comes from acting against personal values, not from failure. Now think about values and boundaries. Values define what you'll accept and what you will reject. When you clearly define core values, life complexity reduces. Now think about career decisions. Values help you choose roles aligned with who you are, not just money or status. Now think about relationship decisions. Values help you choose people aligned with your life direction. Now think about habit decisions. Values drive daily behavior consistency. Now think about stress decisions. Values prevent panic decisions during pressure. Now think about time management. Values help you prioritize what actually matters. Now think about leadership. Values create trust, and trust creates influence. Now think about reputation. Values create long-term credibility. Now think about emotional stability. Values reduce internal conflict. Now think about life direction. Values create long-term alignment between action and identity. Now think about decision speed. When values are clear, decisions happen faster. Now think about resilience. Values give strength during difficulty. Now think about purpose connection. Purpose often grows from values. Over decades, living with strong core values creates powerful life stability. You become predictable in a positive way. People trust you. You trust yourself. You act consistently. You build strong relationships. Now think about career advantage. Value-driven professionals become trusted long-term contributors. Now think about leadership advantage. Value-driven leaders create strong cultures. Now think about relationship advantage. Value alignment creates deep connection. Now think about emotional advantage. Value clarity reduces anxiety during difficult decisions. Now think about personal peace. Living aligned with values creates internal calm. Now think about the deepest truth here. The world will constantly try to influence you through trends, through pressure, through fear, through comparison. But values create internal direction stronger than external pressure. Now imagine living with strong value clarity for decades. You make fewer decisions you regret. You build stronger relationships. You build stronger reputation. You build stronger identity. Now remember this. Values are not rules forced on you. They are choices that protect who you are becoming. Because when you choose strong values, you are choosing your future identity. And once your values are clear, you stop drifting and start moving through life with direction, purpose, and strength. Because in a noisy world, Values are what keep you grounded. Chapter 4. Life Principles. Rules you refuse to break. If core values are what you believe, life principles are how you live those beliefs every day. Values are internal. Principles are operational. Values tell you what matters. Principles tell you how you behave when it matters most. And this distinction is powerful because many people say they value discipline, honesty, growth, or respect. But when pressure appears, when stress rises, when convenience becomes tempting, behavior changes. Principles prevent that drift. Principles are the rules you create for yourself that you refuse to break, even when it is uncomfortable, inconvenient, or difficult. Now think about why principles matter so much. Because life is full of decision fatigue. Every day you make hundreds of small decisions. Should I do this? Should I delay this? Should I respond emotionally? Should I compromise here? Principles reduce this mental overload. They remove negotiation with yourself. Now think about simple principle examples. I keep my word even when it is inconvenient. I show up prepared. I do not lie, even if truth is uncomfortable. I invest time daily in learning. I do hard things first. I treat people with respect, even when they don't. Now think about identity reinforcement. When you follow principles consistently, you build self-trust, and self-trust is one of the strongest forms of confidence. Now think about discipline automation. Principles remove the need for daily motivation. If your principle, I train daily, you don't debate with yourself each day. You simply follow the rule. Now think about emotional stability. Principles prevent emotional decision swings. Now think about pressure testing. Principles are tested most when life is hard. Anyone can follow principles when life is comfortable, but principles show real power during stress. Now think about reputation building. People trust those who live by clear principles because predictability builds trust. Now think about integrity alignment. Principles align behavior with values. Now think about decision speed. Principles remove hesitation. Now think about boundary strength. Principles define what you accept and what you refuse. Now think about regret reduction. Most regret comes from violating personal principles, not from external failure. Now think about long-term stability. Principles create consistency across changing environments. When you live by strong life principles, your life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. Now think about career advantage. Principled professionals become reliable performers. Now think about leadership advantage. Principled leaders create psychological safety and trust. Now think about relationship advantage. Principles create emotional stability in relationships. Now think about stress management. Principles provide direction during confusion. Now think about habit formation. Principles turn good behaviors into non-negotiable actions. Now think about focus advantage. Principles eliminate unnecessary decision noise. Now think about resilience building. Principles hold you steady during chaos. Now think about personal identity. Principles shape how others perceive you. Now think about mental clarity. Living by principles reduces internal conflict. Now think about long-term success pattern. Most high-performing people live by strong internal rules. Now think about freedom paradox. Principles create discipline. Discipline creates freedom. Now think about self-respect. Every time you follow your principles, self-respect grows. Over decades, strong life principles create extraordinary life stability and growth. You become reliable to yourself, reliable to others, emotionally steady, mentally disciplined, trustworthy. Now think about leadership legacy. Principled leaders are remembered long-term. Now think about relationship legacy. Principled behavior builds deep trust. Now think about career legacy. Principled work ethic builds reputation. Now think about emotional legacy. Principles reduce guilt and regret. Now think about the deepest truth here. Life will constantly test your standards. It will offer shortcuts. It will offer excuses. It will offer temporary comfort. But principles protect long-term identity. Now imagine living with strong principles for decades. You become mentally stronger, more consistent, more respected, more stable under pressure. Now remember this. Principles are not restrictions. They are protection. Protection from impulsive decisions. Protection from emotional mistakes. Protection from long-term regret. Because when you know what you refuse to compromise, you stop negotiating with your worst impulses. And once you live by clear principles, you stop asking, what should I do today? You already know, because you design your rules in advance. And that is how strong people stay strong, not by motivation, but by commitment to who they decided to become. Chapter 5, The Reading Habit, Feeding Your Mind Daily. If you want to change your life direction, there is one habit that consistently appears in the lives of high performers, deep thinkers, and long-term successful people. Reading, not occasional reading, not reading only when required, but daily intentional reading. Because reading is one of the fastest ways to upgrade how you think. And thinking quality determines decision quality. And decision quality determines life direction. Now think about what reading really does. Reading is mental training. Every book is a compressed version of someone else's years, sometimes decades of experience, research, failure, learning, and insight. When you read, you are borrowing knowledge from people who spent years discovering it. Now think about time compression. Without reading, you learn mostly from personal trial and error. With reading, you learn from thousands of other people's trials and errors. Now think about thinking model expansion. Reading exposes you to new mental frameworks, new ways of solving problems, new ways of understanding people, new ways of analyzing situations. Now think about why this matters. Because your brain makes decisions using stored knowledge patterns. If you expose yourself to limited ideas, you make limited decisions. Now think about mental diversity. Reading expands intellectual perspective. Now think about emotional intelligence growth. Reading stories and psychology expands empathy and human understanding. Now think about problem-solving advantage. Reading gives multiple solution strategies. Now think about creativity expansion. Ideas combine. New insights form. Now think about focus training. Reading builds concentration ability. Now think about patience building. Deep reading slows reactive thinking. Now think about stress reduction. Reading shifts mental state away from constant digital stimulation. Now think about self-awareness growth. Reading personal development and philosophy builds introspection. Now think about vocabulary and communication growth. Reading improves articulation and clarity. Now think about confidence growth. Knowledge creates grounded confidence. Now think about intellectual independence. Reading reduces dependence on popular opinion. When you build a daily reading habit, long-term thinking becomes sharper and more structured. Now think about decision improvement. Reading exposes you to consequences others already experienced. Now think about career growth. Reading industry knowledge keeps you competitive. Now think about leadership development. Reading leadership and psychology improves people management. Now think about financial literacy. Reading finance reduces costly mistakes. Now think about mental resilience. Reading about adversity creates psychological preparation. Now think about innovation thinking. Reading outside your field creates cross-domain insight. Now think about learning speed. Readers absorb new concepts faster. Now think about discipline training. Daily reading builds consistency muscle. Now think about distraction resistance. Reading trains deep focus, rare skill in modern world. Now think about information filtering. Reading teaches how to evaluate ideas critically. Now think about long-term mental health. Reading reduces constant social comparison. Now think about identity shift. Readers start seeing themselves as lifelong learners. Over decades, reading habit creates massive intellectual advantage. You think deeper. You analyze faster. You adapt quicker. You communicate clearer. You make better long-term decisions. Now think about career advantage. Readers often become strategic thinkers. Now think about leadership advantage. Readers often become better communicators and vision thinkers. Now think about financial advantage. Readers understand long-term patterns better. Now think about emotional advantage. Readers develop perspective, and perspective reduces panic. Now think about personal growth advantage. Readers continuously upgrade identity. Now think about the deepest truth here. The mind is like a muscle. If you don't feed it quality input, it weakens. Now imagine reading consistently for 10 years. Thousands of new ideas. Hundreds of new perspectives. Massive decision-making advantage. Now remember this. You become what you consume mentally. Social media trains reactive thinking. Reading trains deep thinking. And once you build strong reading habit, you stop thinking only from personal experience and start thinking from collective human knowledge. And that is one of the fastest ways to accelerate personal development, because you don't have to live long enough to learn everything yourself. You can learn from people who already did, and that changes how fast you grow. Chapter 6, Continuous Learning Mindset. If reading is a habit that feeds your mind, continuous learning is the mindset that keeps your life evolving. Because in the modern world, knowledge does not stay valuable forever. Skills expire. Industries transform. Technology replaces old systems. New problems require new thinking. And the people who thrive long-term are not the ones who learn once. They are the ones who never stop learning. Continuous learning is not about formal education only. It is about staying curious, staying adaptable, staying open to new ideas, staying willing to update your thinking. Now think about the old world model. Learn, graduate, work, retire. That model no longer works. Now think about the modern reality. Learn, work, relearn, adapt, upgrade, repeat. Now think about why continuous learning matters. Because change is accelerating. Technology evolves faster. Markets shift faster. Skills become outdated faster. Now think about adaptability advantage. People who learn continuously are harder to replace. Now think about learning versus intelligence. Long-term success is not determined by how smart you are. It is determined by how fast you learn. Now think about learning confidence. Continuous learners are not afraid of new environments. Now think about uncertainty tolerance. Learning mindset reduces fear change. Now think about curiosity power. Curiosity drives exploration and innovation. Now think about beginner mindset. Continuous learners stay comfortable being beginners again and again. Now think about ego danger. Ego says, I already know enough. Growth mindset says, what can I learn next? Now think about feedback learning. Continuous learners learn from mistakes faster. Now think about skill stacking. Multiple skills create rare professional combinations. Now think about intellectual flexibility. Continuous learners update beliefs when evidence changes. Now think about career survival. Industries change. Roles change. Skills change. Learning keeps you relevant. When you build continuous learning mindset, you stop fearing change. You start preparing for it. Now think about learning sources. Books, courses, mentors, experience, reflection, conversation, experimentation. Now think about learning efficiency. You don't need to learn everything. You need to learn strategically. Now think about learning compounding. New knowledge connects with old knowledge. Now think about problem-solving evolution. The more you learn, the faster you see patterns. Now think about innovation advantage. Learning across fields creates breakthrough ideas. Now think about decision advantage. Learning expands perspective before making choices. Now think about emotional growth. Learning psychology improves self-control. Now think about social growth. Learning communication improves relationships. Now think about financial growth. Learning money systems improves financial outcomes. Now think about self-confidence. Knowledge reduces fear of unknown. Now think about mental agility. Learning keeps brain adaptable. Now think about resilience building. Learning prepares you for unexpected change. Over decades, continuous learning becomes one of the most powerful life advantages. You stay competitive. You stay adaptable. You stay intellectually sharp. You stay mentally confident. Now think about career advantage. Continuous learners move into emerging opportunities faster. Now think about business advantage. Learning organizations innovate faster. Now think about leadership advantage. Learning leaders make better long-term decisions. Now think about emotional advantage. Learning mindset reduces fear of failure. Now think about future advantage. Learning speed becomes more valuable than existing knowledge. Now think about the deepest truth here. You cannot future-proof your skills, but you can future-proof your ability to learn new skills. Now imagine living with continuous learning mindset for decades. You never become outdated. You never become mentally stagnant. You become known as adaptable and capable. Now remember this. The world will not slow down. Technology will not slow down. Information will not slow down. Competition will not slow down. But learning allows you to keep up and often move ahead, because learning is not just about knowledge. It is about survival. It is about relevance. It is about opportunity. And once you adopt continuous learning mindset, you stop asking, what if the world changes? And start saying, I will learn fast enough to grow with it. And that is how you build a future-proof mind. Chapter 7, The Power Hour System. If continuous learning is a mindset that keeps you growing, the Power Hour is the system that turns growth into a daily reality. Because most people want to improve. Most people want to learn more. Most people want to become stronger mentally and emotionally. But intention without structure rarely creates results. And this is where the Power Hour changes everything. The Power Hour is simple. One focused hour every day dedicated only to improving yourself. Not scrolling, not reacting, not multitasking. Just focused, intentional growth. And this sounds small, but small daily improvement is one of the most powerful forces in personal development. Now think about why 1 hour is powerful. Because consistency beats intensity. 1 hour daily equals 365 hours per year. That is more focused learning time than most people invest in themselves in years. Now think about compounding effect. Small daily gains multiply. Skill improves. Thinking sharpens. Confidence builds. Identity shifts. Now think about mental focus training. The Power Hour trains deep workability. And deep focus is rare in modern distraction-heavy world. Now think about habit psychology. When something becomes daily routine, resistance reduces. Now think about identity reinforcement. Daily improvement builds identity of growth-focused person. Now think about control factor. Even in chaotic life, 1 hour is often controllable. Now think about momentum effect. Daily progress creates psychological momentum. Now think about discipline building. Power Hour builds self-control muscle. Now think about stress reduction. Structure improvement reduces feeling of being stuck. Now think about skill acceleration. Focused learning beats scattered learning. Now think about mental clarity. Intentional learning reduces information overload. Now think about confidence building. Daily improvement proves progress. When you implement Power Hour system, growth stops being abstract and becomes measurable. Now think about what you can include inside Power Hour. Reading, skill training, learning courses, writing reflection, planning goals, practicing communication, physical training if growth focused. Now think about learning depth. Focused Hour allows deeper understanding. Now think about distraction elimination. No phone notifications. No multitasking. Now think about environment design. Same time daily builds habit strength. Now think about energy timing. Best Power Hour is when your brain is most fresh. Now think about morning advantage. Morning Power Hour often creates strongest consistency. Now think about evening reflection option. Evening Power Hour can be reflection and learning. Now think about flexibility rule. Exact time less important than daily consistency. Now think about progress tracking. Tracking hours builds motivation. Now think about skill stacking. Multiple Power Hours over years build rare skill combinations. Now think about emotional discipline. Power Hour teaches delayed gratification. Now think about personal control. Power Hour creates feeling of life direction. Over years, Power Hour system becomes life-changing. You become more skilled, more focused, more confident, more disciplined, more mentally sharp. Now think about career advantage. Power Hour learners outpace peers in skill development. Now think about leadership advantage. Consistent learners become strategic thinkers. Now think about emotional advantage. Daily improvement reduces self-doubt. Now think about financial advantage. Skill compounding creates earning advantage. Now think about life satisfaction. Daily growth creates sense of progress. Now think about the deepest truth here. Most people wait for time to improve themselves, but time never appears. It must be created intentionally. Now imagine following Power Hour for 10 years, thousands of learning hours, massive knowledge growth, strong discipline identity. Now remember this. You don't need 10 hours per day to change your life. You need one focused hour, repeated consistently, because massive life change rarely comes from dramatic action. It comes from small, consistent improvement. And once Power Hour becomes your daily ritual, you stop hoping you improve. You know you are improving every single day. And that is how strong people build strong lives, one intentional hour at a time. Chapter 8, Learning from Mentors. If the Power Hour accelerates how fast you improve. Mentors accelerate how fast you understand what actually matters. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make in personal development is trying to figure everything out alone. And independence is valuable, but isolation is expensive. Because learning everything through personal trial and error takes years, sometimes decades. Mentors compress time. They help you avoid mistakes you haven't made yet. They help you see patterns you don't recognize yet. They help you focus on what matters instead of wasting energy on what doesn't. Now think about what a mentor really is. A mentor is not someone who controls your decisions, not someone who lives your life for you. A mentor is someone who has already walked the path you are walking and can help you see obstacles before you reach them. Now think about why mentors accelerate growth. Experience creates pattern recognition. Mentors see patterns faster than beginners. Now think about blind spot removal. Mentors often see your weaknesses and strengths more clearly than you do. Now think about emotional guidance. Mentors help you stay calm during difficulty because they have experienced similar situations. Now think about perspective expansion. Mentors help you see beyond short-term thinking. Now think about network advantage. Mentors often connect you to opportunities you would not access alone. Now think about confidence transfer. Borrowed confidence is real. When someone experienced believes in your potential, it reduces self-doubt. Now think about mistake prevention. Mentors help you avoid high-cost mistakes. Now think about accountability factor. Mentors increase follow-through commitment. Now think about learning focus. Mentors help you learn what matters most first. Now think about strategic thinking. Mentors help you think long-term. Now think about emotional stability. Mentors normalize struggle and failure. When you build strong mentor relationships, growth becomes more directed and efficient. Now think about how mentorship actually works best. Mentorship is not one-sided. It is based on respect, curiosity, willingness to learn. Now think about mentee responsibility. Ask good questions. Apply advice. Respect mentor time. Show progress. Now think about mentor selection. Choose mentors based on values, not just success. Now think about learning diversity. Different mentors can help in different areas. Career mentor, life mentor, skill mentor, mindset mentor. Now think about indirect mentorship. Books can act as mentors. Courses can act as mentors. Interviews can act as mentors. Now think about ego barrier. Some people avoid mentors because they don't want to appear inexperienced. But growth requires humility. Now think about feedback acceptance. Mentorship requires openness to constructive criticism. Now think about learning acceleration. Mentorship reduces years of confusion. Now think about strategic shortcuts. Mentors help you avoid unnecessary detours. Now think about emotional strength. Mentors help you stay stable during setbacks. Now think about long-term relationship value. Mentorship often evolves into partnership or friendship. Over decades, learning from mentors creates massive life advantage. You grow faster. You make fewer major mistakes. You see opportunities earlier. You gain confidence faster. Now think about career advantage. Mentor professionals often reach leadership roles faster. Now think about business advantage. Mentored entrepreneurs avoid early fatal mistakes. Now think about emotional advantage. Mentored individuals handle stress better. Now think about decision advantage. Mentored people make more informed long-term decisions. Now think about network advantage. Mentors often introduce ments to valuable connections. Now think about the deepest truth here. No one succeeds completely alone. Behind every strong individual is influence from people who guided, challenged, or taught them. Now imagine having strong mentorship for 10 years. Hundreds of mistakes avoided. Thousands of hours saved. Massive confidence growth. Now remember this. Asking for guidance is not weakness. It is intelligence. Because learning from someone who has already solved a problem is faster than solving it blindly yourself. And once you build strong mentor relationships, you stop feeling lost during difficult phases because you have guidance, perspective, experience, support. And that is one of the fastest ways to accelerate personal growth because borrowed wisdom is still wisdom and applied wisdom becomes your strength. Chapter 9, Environment Design. Surround yourself with growth. Most people think success is built only through discipline and motivation. And discipline is important. Motivation is useful. But there is something even more powerful than both. Environment. Because environment quietly shapes behavior, often without you noticing. Your habits, your thinking patterns, your emotional state, your confidence, your ambition, all are influenced by the environment you live in every day. Now think about a simple truth. It is easier to act differently when your environment supports growth, and it is harder to act differently when your environment encourages comfort, distraction, or negativity. Now think about environment layers. Physical environment, social environment, information environment, emotional environment. Each layer influences behavior. Now think about physical environment. Cluttered space, cluttered thinking. Organized space, focused thinking. Now think about social environment. You become similar to people you spend time with. Now think about mindset influence. If you are surrounded by people who value growth, you grow faster. If you are surrounded by people who resist growth, growth feels harder. Now think about expectation influence. People around you set invisible standards. Now think about emotional environment. Supportive environments build confidence. Critical environments build self-doubt. Now think about information environment. What you consume shapes what you think about. Now think about media exposure. Constant negative content, fear-based thinking. Growth content, opportunity-based thinking. Now think about opportunity exposure. Environments expose you to different possibilities. Now think about habit automation. Environment can remove or add friction to behavior. Now think about decision energy. Strong environments reduce willpower requirements. Now think about identity reinforcement. Environment constantly signals who you are becoming. When you intentionally design environment, personal development becomes easier and faster. Now think about physical space design. Workspace influences productivity. Living space influences mood. Now think about digital environment. Apps you use shape attention. Notifications shape focus. Now think about social circle selection. Growth-focused friends accelerate progress. Now think about conversation environment. What people talk about influences what you think about. Now think about mentor environment. Access to experienced thinkers upgrades decision quality. Now think about energy environment. Places influence emotional energy. Now think about distraction control. Environment can remove temptation triggers. Now think about learning environment. Space is dedicated to learning, increase learning consistency. Now think about accountability environment. Growth groups increase commitment. Now think about ambition exposure. Seeing ambitious people expands personal ambition. Now think about success normalization. In high-performing environments, growth becomes normal. Now think about emotional safety. Supportive environments increase experimentation willingness. Over decades, environment design creates massive life advantage. You grow faster with less resistance. You maintain discipline with less effort. You stay mentally strong with less struggle. Now think about career advantage. Growth environments accelerate skill development. Now think about relationship advantage. Supportive environments improve emotional stability. Now think about financial advantage. Opportunity-rich environments increase financial exposure. Now think about mental health advantage. Positive environments reduce stress baseline. Now think about personal growth advantage. Environment removes constant friction. Now think about the deepest truth here. You are not only shaped by your choices, you are shaped by your surroundings. Now imagine living in growth-focused environments for decades. Daily conversations improve thinking. Daily surroundings support focus. Daily exposure expands vision. Now remember this. You don't need to be perfect in a strong environment. Environment carries part of the load. But in weak environments, you must fight constantly just to stay consistent. And once you understand environment design, you stop asking only, how can I be stronger? And start asking, how can I build environments that make strength easier? Because strong environments create strong people, and designing your environment is one of the smartest personal development moves you can ever make. Chapter 10, Positive Mindset, Training Your Default Thinking. Most people think mindset is something you either have or don't. You are either positive or negative, optimistic or pessimistic, confident or doubtful. But mindset is not fixed. Mindset is trained. And your default thinking pattern is built slowly through repetition, not genetics, not luck, not personality alone. Because your brain is always learning from how you interpret events. Not what happens to you, but how you explain what happens to you. Now think about two people facing the same challenge. One thinks, this is impossible. I always fail. The other thinks, this is hard, but I can figure out. Same situation, different thinking, different emotional response, different action, different outcome. Now think about why positive mindset matters. Positive mindset is not about pretending everything is good. It is about believing improvement is possible. Now think about cognitive framing. Your brain builds reality through interpretation. Now think about opportunity awareness. Positive thinkers notice possibilities faster. Now think about problem solving. Optimism increases creative thinking ability. Now think about emotional resilience. Positive mindset reduces emotional crash after failure. Now think about motivation sustainability. Positive thinking increases persistence. Now think about stress tolerance. Positive mindset reduces stress intensity. Now think about learning speed. People who believe improvement is possible learn faster. Now think about risk-taking confidence. Positive mindset reduces fear paralysis. Now think about decision clarity. Positive thinkers focus on solutions, not only problems. Now think about emotional energy. Negative thinking drains energy. Positive thinking preserves energy. Now think about social influence. Positive mindset attracts supportive people. Now think about mental flexibility. Positive thinkers adapt faster, change. When you train positive mindset intentionally, your brain starts defaulting to growth-oriented thinking. Now think about self-talk awareness. How you speak to yourself shapes confidence. Now think about thought replacement technique. Catch negative automatic thoughts. Replace with constructive thinking. Now think about gratitude training. Gratitude rewires attention toward positive signals. Now think about solution-focused thinking. Ask, what can I do next, instead of, why is this happening to me? Now think about failure reframing. Failure becomes feedback, not identity. Now think about stress reframing. Stress becomes challenge, not threat. Now think about expectation design. Expect difficulty, but believe in growth through difficulty. Now think about media filtering. Reduce constant negative input. Now think about environment influence. Positive environments strengthen positive thinking. Now think about learning optimism. Learn from people who overcame adversity. Now think about progress tracking. Noticing improvement reinforces positive mindset. Now think about long-term mental conditioning. Repetition creates new mental default patterns. Over decades, positive mindset creates massive life advantage. You recover faster from failure. You see opportunities earlier. You build stronger relationships. You maintain motivation longer. Now think about career advantage. Positive thinkers become problem solvers. Now think about leadership advantage. Positive leaders create resilient teams. Now think about emotional advantage. Positive mindset reduces anxiety cycles. Now think about social advantage. Positive energy attracts collaboration. Now think about personal growth advantage. Positive thinkers take more growth risks. Now think about the deepest truth here. Negative thinking feels protective, but it limits growth. Now imagine living with trained positive mindset for decades. You face challenges with confidence. You adapt faster. You try more opportunities. You build stronger mental resilience. Now remember this. Positive mindset is not denial of reality. It is choosing to focus on what you can improve, because reality always contains problems and opportunities. And once you train your brain to search for opportunity, you change your life trajectory, because thinking drives action. Action drives results, and results drive future possibilities. And training your mindset is one of the highest return investments you can make in your entire life. Chapter 11, Emotional Intelligence, Mastering Internal Reactions. If mindset shapes how you interpret the world, emotional intelligence shapes how you respond to it. And in many ways, emotional intelligence is a hidden engine behind success, relationships, leadership, and personal stability, because intelligence alone does not guarantee good decisions. Skill alone does not guarantee good outcomes. But emotional control often determines how well you use your intelligence and skills, especially under pressure. Now think about what emotional intelligence really means. It is not about suppressing emotions. It is not about becoming cold or disconnected. It is about understanding emotions, managing emotions, using emotions intelligently. Now, think about the 4 core parts of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, knowing what you feel and why. Self-regulation, managing emotional reactions. Social awareness, understanding others' emotions. Relationship management, navigating emotional interactions effectively. Now, think about emotional awareness first. Most people feel emotions before they understand them. They react before they think. Emotional intelligence creates pause, and pause creates choice. Now think about reaction speed. Without emotional control, instant reaction. With emotional control, intentional response. Now think about stress situations. Emotionally reactive people panic faster. Emotionally intelligent people stabilize faster. Now think about decision quality. Strong emotions can distort logic. Now think about impulse control. Emotional intelligence reduces destructive impulse behavior. Now think about relationship quality. Understanding others' emotions improves communication. Now think about leadership impact. Emotionally intelligent leaders create trust and safety. Now think about conflict management. Emotional intelligence reduces escalation. Now think about resilience. Emotionally intelligent people recover faster from emotional setbacks. Now think about empathy. Empathy improves connection and influence. Now think about self-confidence type. Emotionally intelligent confidence is stable, not ego-driven. Now think about emotional vocabulary. Naming emotions increases control over them. When you build emotional intelligence intentionally, life becomes more stable and predictable internally, even if the external world is chaotic. Now, think about emotional trigger mapping. What situations trigger stress, anger, fear, or anxiety? Now think about emotional delay technique. Pause before reacting. Now think about breathing control. Breathing stabilizes nervous system. Now think about perspective shifting. Ask, will this matter in 1 year? Now think about empathy training. Try to understand why others behave certain ways. Now think about listening skill. Listening reduces conflict faster than arguing. Now think about communication tone control. Tone often matters more than words. Now think about emotional boundary building. Not all emotions from others need to become yours. Now think about stress processing. Healthy processing prevents emotional overload. Now think about emotional journaling. Writing emotions increases clarity. Now think about self-compassion. Self-criticism often reduces growth speed. Now think about pattern recognition. Notice repeated emotional triggers. Over decades, emotional intelligence creates massive life advantage. You build stronger relationships. You make better decisions under stress. You recover faster from emotional setbacks. You maintain mental clarity in chaos. Now think about career advantage. Emotionally intelligent professionals handle pressure better. Now think about leadership advantage. Emotionally intelligent leaders build loyal teams. Now think about relationship advantage. Emotionally intelligent communication builds trust. Now think about mental health advantage. Emotional regulation reduces anxiety cycles. Now think about social advantage. Emotionally intelligent people are easier to collaborate with. Now think about the deepest truth here. You cannot control every situation, but you can control your response to every situation. Now imagine living with high emotional intelligence for decades. You experience less regret from emotional decisions. You maintain stronger relationships. You stay calmer under pressure. You think clearly when others panic. Now remember this. Emotions are not enemies. They are signals. But signals are not commands. And once you learn to read emotional signals without being controlled by them, you become extremely powerful internally. Because the strongest people are not those who never feel emotion. They are those who understand emotion and still choose their response wisely. And that is emotional mastery. Chapter 12, Communication Mastery. If emotional intelligence helps you understand yourself and others, communication mastery helps you translate that understanding into real-world influence. Because no matter how intelligent you are, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how strong your ideas are, if you cannot communicate clearly, your potential stays limited. Communication is how ideas move. It is how trust builds. It is how relationships grow. It is how leadership happens. It is how opportunities appear. And most people underestimate how much communication quality shapes life outcomes. Now think about what communication really is. Communication is not just talking. It is clarity. It is listening. It is timing. It is emotional tone. It is body language. It is understanding before responding. Now think about clarity first. Clear communication reduces confusion. Confusion creates mistakes. Confusion creates conflict. Confusion creates lost opportunities. Now think about listening power. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. Strong communicators listen to learn. Now think about emotional tone. Same words can create trust or damage relationships, depending on tone. Now think about body language. Nonverbal communication often speaks louder than words. Now think about simplicity principle. Simple communication is powerful communication. Now think about message structure. Clear beginning, clear core message, clear action or takeaway. Now think about emotional awareness in communication. Words must match emotional context. Now think about timing importance. Right message at wrong time often fails. Now think about influence factor. People accept ideas when they feel understood. Now think about trust factor. Consistent, honest communication builds credibility. Now think about conflict reduction. Clear communication prevents misunderstanding. Now think about leadership communication. Leaders communicate vision clearly and repeatedly. When you develop communication mastery, opportunities expand dramatically. Now think about career growth. Clear communicators often move into leadership roles faster. Now think about relationship strength. Clear communication prevents long-term resentment. Now think about negotiation advantage. Understanding others improves deal outcomes. Now think about persuasion skill. Persuasion is clarity plus empathy plus logic. Now think about storytelling power. Stories make ideas memorable. Now think about confidence signal. Clear communication signals competence. Now think about listening as influence. People trust those who listen deeply. Now think about question quality. Good questions reveal important information. Now think about emotional validation. People want to feel understood, not corrected immediately. Now think about feedback delivery. Constructive feedback requires clarity plus respect. Now think about disagreement skill. Strong communicators disagree without destroying relationships. Now think about public communication. Public speaking multiplies influence scale. Over decades, communication mastery becomes one of the highest leveraged life skills. You build stronger networks. You build stronger trust. You influence more decisions. You lead more effectively. Now think about career advantage. Strong communicators become strategic decision influencers. Now think about leadership advantage. Clear communication aligns teams. Now think about business advantage. Clear messaging attracts customers and partners. Now think about relationship advantage. Communication prevents emotional distance. Now think about emotional advantage. Clear expression reduces internal stress. Now think about the deepest truth here. Most opportunities are not lost because of lack of skill. They are lost because of lack of clear communication. Now imagine mastering communication over decades. You become someone people listen to, someone people trust, someone people follow. Now remember this. Communication is not about sounding smart. It is about making ideas easy to understand. Because clarity creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity creates growth. And once you master communication, you don't just express ideas. You move people. You build relationships. You create impact. And that is why communication is not just a skill. It is a life multiplier. Chapter 13, Purpose Discovery, Why You Exist Beyond Survival. At some point in life, most people ask a deeper question. Not just, how do I succeed? But why am I doing all of this? Because survival alone is not enough for long-term fulfillment. You can have income, you can have stability, you can have comfort, and still feel something missing. That missing piece is often purpose. Purpose is not about job titles. It is not about social recognition. It is not about what impresses others. Purpose is about meaning. It is the reason you wake up with direction. It is the reason you push through difficulty. It is the reason your effort feels connected to something larger than comfort. Now think about why purpose matters psychologically. Humans are meaning-driven. Without meaning, motivation becomes unstable. With meaning, motivation becomes resilient. Now think about short-term versus long-term motivation. Short-term motivation comes from rewards, money, status, approval. But long-term motivation comes from purpose. Now think about anxiety connection. Lack of direction often creates internal restlessness. Now think about decision clarity. Purpose simplifies choices. Now think about energy stability. Purpose reduces burnout. Now think about adversity tolerance. Purpose makes hardship meaningful. Now think about identity strength. Purpose creates identity stability. Now think about emotional resilience. Purpose creates psychological endurance. Now think about focus advantage. Purpose reduces distraction. Now think about regret reduction. Purpose-aligned life reduces long-term regret. Now think about contribution factor. Purpose often involves helping others, directly or indirectly. Now think about fulfillment difference. Success without purpose often feels empty. Now think about direction clarity. Purpose acts like a long-term compass. When you begin discovering purpose, life becomes more intentional and less reactive. Now think about how purpose often develops. Purpose rarely appears instantly. It is discovered through exploration. Now think about pattern recognition. What activities give you energy? Now think about value alignment. What problems do you care about solving? Now think about strength alignment. What skills come naturally to you? Now think about impact awareness. Where can you help others most effectively? Now think about curiosity signals. What topics naturally attract your attention? Now think about frustration signals. What problems in the world bother you deeply? Now think about legacy thinking. What do you want to leave behind? Now think about growth connection. Purpose often grows stronger through experience. Now think about experimentation role. Trying new paths helps reveal direction. Now think about failure clarity. Failure often reveals what you do not want, which helps find what you do want. Now think about mentorship role. Mentors can help clarify direction faster. Now think about reflection importance. Quiet thinking time often reveals deeper meaning. Over decades, living with purpose creates powerful life advantage. You stay motivated longer. You stay focused longer. You build meaningful success, not empty success. You handle difficulty better. Now think about career advantage. Purpose-driven professionals build meaningful expertise. Now think about leadership advantage. Purpose-driven leaders inspire others. Now think about relationship advantage. Purpose-driven people build deeper connections. Now think about emotional advantage. Purpose reduces existential anxiety. Now think about long-term happiness. Purpose correlates strongly with life satisfaction. Now think about the deepest truth here. Purpose is not something you find once. It evolves as you grow. Now imagine living with strong purpose awareness for decades. You waste less time chasing meaningless goals. You build deeper satisfaction. You create meaningful impact. You feel direction even during difficulty. Now remember this. Purpose does not require changing the world. Sometimes purpose is helping your family, helping your community, building something meaningful, solving problems that matter to you, because purpose is personal. And once you discover purpose direction, you stop drifting through life and start building something meaningful. Because in the end, people rarely regret working too hard toward meaningful goals. They regret never discovering what truly mattered to them. And purpose is what turns survival into meaning. Chapter 14, Writing Your Life Vision. If purpose is a direction of your life vision is a detailed map of where you are going. Because many people have vague dreams. I want to be successful. I want to be happy. I want to have a good life. But vague dreams rarely create clear results because the brain needs clarity to focus. And writing your life vision transforms abstract dreams into structured direction. Now think about why writing matters. Writing forces clarity. Thinking alone can stay vague and emotional. Writing makes ideas concrete, specific, measurable, actionable. Now think about brain processing. When you write goals and vision, your brain treats them as important signals. Now think about focus filtering. Clear vision helps you ignore distractions. Now think about motivation stability. Clear direction reduces confusion during hard times. Now think about identity shaping. Written vision defines who you are becoming. Now think about decision shortcut. When opportunities appear, vision helps you decide faster. Now think about stress reduction. Clarity reduces uncertainty anxiety. Now think about future orientation. Vision moves thinking from reactive, proactive. Now think about planning quality. Written vision improves strategic planning. Now think about long-term consistency. Vision keeps you aligned during life changes. Now think about confidence reinforcement. Clear direction builds internal certainty. Now think about habit alignment. Daily habits become tools supporting vision. When you write life vision intentionally, you start designing life instead of reacting to it. Now think about vision categories: career direction, financial goals, health goals, relationship goals, learning goals, personal growth goals, lifestyle design. Now think about time horizon: 1 year vision, 5-year vision, 10-year direction. Now think about flexibility principle. Vision can evolve, but direction should stay meaningful. Now think about emotional connection. Strong vision creates emotional energy. Now think about realistic optimism. Vision should be challenging, but believable. Now think about environment alignment. Vision helps you design supporting environments. Now think about opportunity selection. Vision helps you say no to distractions. Now think about progress tracking. Written vision allows measurement. Now think about visualization effect. Seeing written vision reinforces motivation. Now think about accountability. Written vision increases commitment. Now think about future self-connection. Vision connects present actions to future identity. Now think about discipline reinforcement. Vision makes sacrifice meaningful. Over decades, written life vision creates massive life advantage. You move faster with less confusion. You waste less time on distractions. You build consistent progress. You feel more control over life direction. Now think about career advantage. Vision-driven professionals create long-term career strategies. Now think about financial advantage. Vision-driven financial planning builds stability and growth. Now think about relationship advantage. Vision clarifies relationship standards and expectations. Now think about emotional advantage. Vision reduces fear of uncertainty. Now think about life satisfaction. Vision-driven life creates stronger sense of meaning. Now think about the deepest truth here. If you don't design your life vision, you will slowly live someone else's expectations. Now imagine living with clear written life vision for decades. Every year builds towards something meaningful. Every decision connects to long-term direction. Every challenge becomes part of larger story. Now remember this. You don't need perfect vision. You need clear enough direction to move forward, because clarity creates momentum, and momentum creates progress, and progress creates confidence. And once you start writing your life vision, you stop hoping life becomes meaningful. You start building meaning intentionally, because life does not automatically organize itself into something meaningful. Meaning is created, and vision is the blueprint for that creation. Chapter 15, Spiritual Exploration, Understanding Your Inner World. At some point in person development, growth becomes deeper than skills, habits, and achievements. It becomes internal, because you can have success externally and still feel restless internally. You can achieve goals and still feel something is missing. This is where spiritual exploration begins. Spiritual exploration is not limited to religion. It is not limited to rituals. It is not limited to beliefs. It is about understanding your inner world, your consciousness, your deeper values, your connection to meaning, your relationship with existence itself. Now think about why inner understanding matters. Because external success without internal stability often creates burnout, anxiety, and emptiness. Now think about inner noise. Modern life is full of stimulation, notifications, deadlines, comparisons, pressure. Spiritual exploration creates internal silence. Now think about self-connection. When you understand yourself deeply, external validation becomes less important. Now think about emotional stability. Inner awareness reduces emotional chaos. Now think about ego awareness. Spiritual exploration helps separate identity from ego. Now think about presence awareness. Being present reduces anxiety about future and regret about past. Now think about gratitude depth. Spiritual awareness increases appreciation for life experiences. Now think about meaning perception. Spiritual perspective often reframes hardship as growth opportunity. Now think about compassion growth. Inner understanding increases empathy for others. Now think about mental clarity. Inner calm improves decision-making. Now think about stress processing. Spiritual practices reduce stress baseline. Now think about identity beyond roles. You are not only your job, achievements, or status. Now think about perspective expansion. Spiritual thinking often reduces fear of uncertainty. When you explore your inner world intentionally, life becomes less reactive and more conscious. Now think about common spiritual exploration tools: meditation, journaling, nature connection, reflection, philosophy study, silence practice. Now think about meditation role. Meditation trains observation of thoughts, not attachment to thoughts. Now think about journaling role. Writing clarifies internal emotional and mental patterns. Now think about nature role. Nature often resets mental overload. Now think about reflection role. Reflection converts experience into deeper understanding. Now think about philosophical learning. Philosophy expands perspective beyond daily survival thinking. Now think about silence value. Silence allows deeper thinking. Now think about breath awareness. Breath awareness stabilizes nervous system. Now think about value alignment. Spiritual exploration strengthens connection to core values. Now think about mortality awareness. Understanding life is temporary increases appreciation and urgency for meaningful living. Now think about acceptance skill. Acceptance reduces suffering from uncontrollable events. Now think about internal peace training. Peace becomes skill, not accident. Over decades, spiritual exploration creates powerful internal strength. You become calmer under pressure. You become less reactive to external noise. You become more connected to meaning. You become more emotionally stable. Now think about leadership advantage. Spiritually grounded leaders make long-term ethical decisions. Now think about relationship advantage. Inner stability improves relationship quality. Now think about emotional advantage. Inner awareness reduces emotional volatility. Now think about mental health advantage. Inner connection reduces chronic anxiety and stress. Now think about life satisfaction. Inner peace increases contentment independent of external success. Now think about the deepest truth here. External success alone rarely creates lasting peace. Inner clarity does. Now imagine living with deep inner awareness for decades. You become harder to emotionally destabilize. You become less dependent on external validation. You experience deeper gratitude. You experience stronger purpose clarity. Now remember this. Spiritual exploration is not about escaping reality. It is about understanding reality more deeply. Because when you understand your inner world, you stop being controlled by it and start working with it. And once you build inner peace, external chaos loses power over you. Because the strongest form of strength is not external dominance. It is internal stability. And that is what spiritual exploration builds over time. Chapter 16, Mental Discipline. Doing what is hard but necessary. If spiritual exploration builds inner peace, mental discipline builds inner strength. Because peace without discipline can become comfort. And comfort without discipline often becomes stagnation. Mental discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. Not because you are motivated, not because you are inspired, but because you decided it matters. And this is where many people struggle. They wait for motivation. They wait for the perfect mood. They wait for the right time. But mental discipline operates differently. It says, if it is important, it gets done. Now think about why mental discipline matters so much. Because life rewards consistent action, not emotional readiness. Now think about motivation reality. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is reliable. Now think about emotional variability. Feelings change daily. Discipline creates stability across changing emotions. Now think about success patterns. Most successful people are not always motivated. They are consistent. Now think about resistance principle. The more important something is, the more resistance you may feel. Now think about comfort trap. Comfort often prevents long-term growth. Now think about delayed gratification. Discipline allows you to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term reward. Now think about identity reinforcement. Every disciplined action reinforces strong identity. Now think about confidence building. Keeping promises to yourself builds self-trust. Now think about stress tolerance. Discipline reduces chaos during pressure. Now think about focus strength. Discipline builds attention control. Now think about resilience growth. Discipline prepares you for hard phases of life. When you build mental discipline intentionally, your life becomes more stable and predictable in a powerful way. Now think about daily discipline areas. Waking up consistently, working consistently, learning consistently, training consistently, managing time consistently. Now think about habit automation. Discipline is easier when habits are strong. Now think about environment support. Strong environment makes discipline easier. Now think about routine power. Routine reduces decision fatigue. Now think about microdiscipline. Small discipline actions build larger discipline. Now think about emotional override. Discipline allows action despite negative mood. Now think about accountability. Tracking discipline builds consistency. Now think about self-respect growth. Discipline builds pride and effort. Now think about long-term thinking. Discipline focuses on future benefit. Now think about discomfort tolerance. Discipline increases ability to handle difficulty. Now think about learning discipline. Learning consistently builds intellectual advantage. Now think about physical discipline. Physical training builds mental toughness. Over decades, mental discipline becomes one of the strongest predictors of life success. You become reliable. You become consistent. You become mentally strong. You become trustworthy to yourself and others. Now think about career advantage. Disciplined professionals outperform more talented but inconsistent peers. Now think about leadership advantage. Disciplined leaders build high-performance teams. Now think about financial advantage. Disciplined financial habits build long-term stability. Now think about emotional advantage. Discipline reduces impulsive regret decisions. Now think about personal growth advantage. Discipline creates continuous improvement. Now think about the deepest truth here. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. Now imagine living with strong mental discipline for decades. You build massive skill depth. You build strong reputation. You build stable confidence. You build reliable success patterns. Now remember this. Discipline is not punishment. It is freedom. Freedom from emotional control. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from regret. Because when you can trust yourself to do what is necessary, you become unstoppable in the long term. And once mental discipline becomes part of your identity, you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You simply act because you decided who you are. And disciplined people do not wait to feel ready. They build readiness through action. And that is how strong lives are built, one disciplined decision at a time. Chapter 17, Identity-Based Growth. Most people focus on outcomes. Lose weight, earn more money, get promoted, become successful. And outcomes are important. But there is something more powerful than outcomes. Identity. Because outcomes are temporary. Identity is permanent. And identity is what drives behavior automatically. Identity-based growth means you stop focusing only on what you want to achieve and start focusing on who you want to become. Now think about the difference. Outcome thinking. I want to write a book. Identity thinking. I am a writer. Outcome thinking. I want to get fit. Identity thinking. I am someone who takes care of my body. Outcome thinking. I want to be confident. Identity thinking. I am someone who faces challenges directly. Now think about why identity is powerful. Your brain wants behavior to match identity. If you see yourself as disciplined, you act disciplined. If you see yourself as a learner, you seek knowledge. If you see yourself as reliable, you follow through. Now think about behavior consistency. Identity reduces internal resistance. Now think about habit formation. Identity-based habits stick longer. Now think about self-image power. Self-image shapes daily decisions. Now think about confidence stability. Identity creates deep confidence, not temporary confidence. Now think about emotional strength. Identity reduces self-doubt. Now think about decision clarity. Identity makes decisions faster. Now think about long-term change. Identity change creates permanent change. Now think about motivation independence. Identity-based behavior doesn't need constant motivation. Now think about self-respect growth. Identity consistency builds self-trust. Now think about growth sustainability. Identity growth lasts longer than goal chasing. When you focus on identity-based growth, personal development becomes deeper and more stable. Now think about identity building process. Identity is built through repeated actions. Now think about evidence accumulation. Every action becomes proof of identity. Now think about small identity signals. Small habits reinforce identity. Now think about language shift. Say, I am becoming someone who. Now think about environment reinforcement. Environment should support desired identity. Now think about social reinforcement. Surround yourself with people who support identity growth. Now think about behavior tracking. Track actions that match desired identity. Now think about identity conflict. Old habits fight new identity. Now think about patience requirement. Identity change takes repetition. Now think about belief updating. Repeated success builds new self-image. Now think about emotional resistance. Growth often feels uncomfortable because identity is shifting. Now think about consistency importance. Consistency builds identity faster than intensity. Over decades, identity-based growth creates powerful life transformation. You stop chasing success. You become someone success naturally follows. You build stable habits. You build strong self-trust. Now think about career advantage. Identity-driven professionals become experts. Now think about leadership advantage. Identity-driven leaders act consistently under pressure. Now think about emotional advantage. Identity clarity reduces insecurity. Now think about relationship advantage. Strong identity creates healthy boundaries. Now think about personal growth advantage. Identity growth creates long-term behavioral stability. Now think about the deepest truth here. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity level. Now imagine building strong identity intentionally for decades. You become naturally disciplined, naturally curious, naturally confident, naturally resilient. Now remember this. Identity is not built through words. It is built through actions repeated consistently. Because your brain believes what you do, not what you say. And once you shift focus from outcomes to identity, growth becomes natural. Because you are no longer forcing behavior. You are expressing who you believe you are. And that is the deepest form of personal transformation. Because when identity changes, everything changes. Chapter 18, Learning from Failure. Most people fear failure. They avoid it. They hide from it. They see it as proof that they are not good enough. But high performers, resilient thinkers, and people who achieve meaningful success see failure differently. They see failure as feedback. Because failure is not identity. Failure is information. And once you truly understand this, your relationship with growth changes completely. Now think about why failure feels so painful. Because people attach failure to self-worth. I fail becomes, I am a failure. But these are not the same thing. Now, think about learning reality. Every skill requires mistakes. Every mastery path includes failure. Now think about science model. Science works through trial and error. Now think about skill learning. Mistakes reveal what doesn't work. Now think about fear impact. Fear of failure often prevents action. Now think about growth limitation. Avoiding failure often means avoiding growth. Now think about emotional intensity. Failure often feels bigger than it actually is. Now think about recovery speed. Successful people recover faster from failure emotionally and strategically. Now think about pattern correction. Failure provides adjustment data. Now think about resilience building. Failure increases emotional toughness. Now think about humility training. Failure reduces ego over confidence. Now think about innovation connection. Innovation requires experimentation, and experimentation includes failure. When you learn to extract lessons from failure, failure becomes growth fuel. Now think about failure analysis. What worked? What failed? What can improve next time? Now think about emotional separation. Separate self-worth from performance outcome. Now think about learning documentation. Writing lessons accelerates improvement. Now think about failure normalization. Everyone fails, even top performers. Now think about iteration mindset. Each attempt improves probability of success. Now think about risk intelligence. Failure teaches risk boundaries. Now think about patience training. Failure builds long-term perspective. Now think about feedback integration. Failure is direct performance feedback. Now think about confidence rebuilding. Confidence grows from surviving failure. Now think about courage growth. Facing failure builds bravery. Now think about experimentation culture. Trying multiple approaches increases success chance. Now think about adaptation speed. Failure-aware people adapt faster. Over decades, learning from failure creates massive life advantage. You become fearless in trying new things. You improve faster than others. You recover emotionally faster. You innovate more. Now think about career advantage. Failure-learning professionals build strong expertise. Now think about business advantage. Failure-learning companies innovate faster. Now think about emotional advantage. Failure acceptance reduces anxiety. Now think about leadership advantage. Leaders who learn from failure build stronger teams. Now think about personal growth advantage. Failure builds wisdom. Now think about the deepest truth here. Failure is temporary, but the lessons can be permanent. Now imagine living with failure-learning mindset for decades. You try more opportunities. You build deeper skill mastery. You develop emotional resilience. You build strong confidence rooted in experience. Now remember this. Failure is not opposite of success. It is part of success, because success is built on corrected mistakes. And once you remove emotional fear from failure, you become unstoppable in learning. Because you are no longer protecting ego. You are building skill. And people who learn fastest win longest. And that is the real advantage of learning from failure. Chapter 19, Long-Term Thinking. Most people live in short-term mode, short-term comfort, short-term emotions, short-term rewards, short-term reactions. And short-term thinking is natural because the human brain evolved to survive immediate threats, not to optimize decades-long strategies. But the people who build strong lives, strong careers, strong finances, and strong mental stability develop something different. Long-term thinking. Because life rewards patience more than impulse. Now think about what long-term thinking really means. It means making decisions based on future consequences, not only present comfort. Now think about short-term versus long-term conflict. Healthy food now, health later. Exercise now, strength later. Learning now, opportunity later. Saving now, financial freedom later. Now think about delayed gratification. Long-term thinkers sacrifice small present comfort for larger future reward. Now think about emotional maturity. Long-term thinking requires emotional control. Now think about planning intelligence. Long-term thinkers think in years, not days. Now think about compound effect. Small consistent actions create massive long-term outcomes. Now think about career thinking. Skill building today creates opportunity tomorrow. Now think about relationship thinking. Trust built slowly creates deep long-term relationships. Now think about financial thinking. Compound interest rewards patience. Now think about reputation building. Consistency over years creates strong credibility. Now think about stress reduction. Long-term thinking reduces panic reactions. Now think about decision quality. Long-term thinking filters impulsive choices. Now think about identity stability. Long-term thinkers stay consistent during trends. When you develop long-term thinking mindset, life becomes more stable and strategic. Now think about time horizon expansion. Think in 5-year, 10-year, 20-year effects. Now think about opportunity patience. Not all opportunities pay immediately. Now think about emotional control. Long-term thinkers don't chase emotional decisions. Now think about learning patience. Skill mastery takes years, not weeks. Now think about financial patience. Wealth is built slowly for most people. Now think about relationship investment. Strong relationships grow slowly. Now think about health investment. Health habits create future life quality. Now think about reputation investment. Reputation grows through repeated reliability. Now think about risk thinking. Long-term thinkers avoid decisions that destroy future stability. Now think about regret prevention. Long-term thinking reduces regret. Now think about focus clarity. Long-term vision reduces distraction. Now think about sacrifice meaning. Short-term sacrifice becomes easier with long-term vision. Over decades, long-term thinking creates massive life advantage. You avoid destructive decisions. You build deep expertise. You build strong relationships. You build financial stability. Now think about career advantage. Long-term thinkers build rare skill depth. Now think about leadership advantage. Long-term leaders build sustainable organizations. Now think about financial advantage. Long-term investors outperform emotional traders. Now think about emotional advantage. Long-term thinking reduces anxiety from daily fluctuations. Now think about life satisfaction. Long-term thinking creates meaningful progress. Now think about the deepest truth here. Life is not decided by one big decision. It is shaped by thousands of small long-term aligned decisions. Now imagine living with long-term thinking mindset for decades. You become calm during short-term chaos. You make better strategic decisions. You build stable success. You build meaningful legacy. Now remember this. Short-term thinking feels easier, but long-term thinking builds stronger lives. Because short-term thinking asks, what feels good now? Long-term thinking asks, what creates a strong future? And once you shift toward long-term thinking, you stop chasing fast success and start building lasting success. Because real success is not fast. It is stable. It is consistent. It is built slowly, but powerfully. Chapter 20, Self-Mastery, the ultimate personal goal. If every chapter in this journey is built one part of your growth, self-mastery is where everything comes together. Because self-mastery is not one skill. It is the integration of everything you have built. Your mindset, your discipline, your emotional control, your values, your identity, your habits, your thinking. Self-mastery is the ability to direct yourself regardless of external circumstances. Because the greatest long-term advantage in life is not controlling the world. It is controlling yourself. Now think about what self-mastery really means. It means you control your thoughts instead of thoughts controlling you. You control your emotions instead of emotions controlling you. You control your habits instead of habits controlling you. You control your reactions instead of reacting automatically. Now think about why this is powerful. Because life is unpredictable. People are unpredictable. Markets are unpredictable. Events are unpredictable. But self-mastery creates internal stability. Now think about reaction control. Self-mastery creates pause before action. Now think about emotional strength. Self-mastery reduces impulsive behavior. Now think about decision clarity. Self-mastery allows rational thinking under pressure. Now think about discipline integration. Self-mastery makes discipline automatic. Now think about stress resilience. Self-mastery prevents panic thinking. Now think about identity strength. Self-mastery builds unshakable self-trust. Now think about confidence stability. Self-mastery confidence comes from internal control, not external success. Now think about focus control. Self-mastery protects attention from distractions. Now think about goal consistency. Self-mastery keeps you aligned during emotional fluctuations. Now think about long-term growth. Self-mastery creates lifelong improvement ability. When you move towards self-mastery, life becomes less reactive and more intentional. Now think about thought mastery. Observe thoughts before believing them. Now think about emotional mastery. Feel emotions, but don't let them control decisions. Now think about habit mastery. Design habits that support your best self. Now think about reaction mastery. Respond intentionally, not impulsively. Now think about time mastery. Spend time aligned with long-term goals. Now think about attention mastery. Control what you focus on daily. Now think about energy mastery. Protect physical and mental energy. Now think about learning mastery. Never stop improving. Now think about ego mastery. Stay humble enough to keep growing. Now think about fear mastery. Act despite fear when action is meaningful. Now think about comfort mastery. Choose growth over comfort when needed. Now think about environment mastery. Design surroundings that support your best behavior. Over decades, self-mastery becomes the ultimate life advantage. You become emotionally stable, mentally strong, strategically calm, consistently disciplined. Now think about career advantage. Self-mastered professionals perform under pressure. Now think about leadership advantage. Self-mastered leaders create strong, stable teams. Now think about relationship advantage. Self-mastered people communicate clearly and calmly. Now think about financial advantage. Self-mastered people avoid impulsive financial mistakes. Now think about emotional advantage. Self-mastery reduces anxiety and regret. Now think about life satisfaction. Self-mastery creates deep internal peace. Now think about the deepest truth here. You cannot control everything that happens in life, but you can control who you are when it happens. Now imagine living with strong self-mastery for decades. You become steady during chaos. You become clear during confusion. You become strong during difficulty. You become focused during distraction. Now remember this. Self-mastery is not perfection. It is progress. It is daily effort, daily awareness, daily discipline, daily improvement. Because mastery is not a destination. It is a lifelong practice. And once you commit to self-mastery, you stop being shaped by the world and start shaping your response to the world. And that is the highest level of personal power. Because the strongest person is not the one who controls others. It is the one who controls themselves. And when you control yourself, you control your direction. You control your growth. You control your future. And that is what self-mastery truly means. The world will always demand more from you, more performance, more output, more success, more results. But the strongest people are not the ones who chase external success first. They build internal strength first. Because when you improve your thinking, your decisions improve. When your decisions improve, your results improve. Personal development is not something you finish. It is something you live. Every book you read shapes your thinking. Every habit you build shapes your character. Every challenge you face shapes your resilience. Every lesson you learn shapes your future. And over time, something powerful happens. You stop reacting to life. You start designing it. Because success is not random. Confidence is not random. Peace is not random. They are built. And now, you are building yourself intentionally. The question is not whether life will challenge you. It will. The real question is, will you grow faster than your challenges? Because the people who win in life are not the ones who avoid difficulty. They're the ones who outgrow it.